Hello, I'm Rose Diamond from Tribe in Transition, and this is a second in a series of short videos about how we can transform grief and loss into wholeness and creative power, not just for ourselves, but for our world. So this is very exciting. You know, often when I tell people I've been spending the last few years working on a series of resources, learning resources called Sitting with Death and Choosing Life, their immediate reaction was, oh, no, no, death, dark, morbid, don't want to go there, suffering, no, don't want to go there. But actually, if you take the bigger picture, this is very exciting because it's about we're living at a time when we have it within our power as human beings to actually do something very different here on the planet. And what I'm saying is that death, grief, and loss can be the doorway into that new culture, into that new world that we're all longing for in our hearts. But we have to be willing to go through that doorway. We have to be willing to do that work of deep healing. Or at least some of us do. Everybody's not called to be a deep healer, but I'm sure if you're watching this video, you probably are. So today's video is about how is it that when grieving is such a natural process, it's not just, not just humans who grieve, animals grieve, in our animal body, we know how to grieve. How have we been conditioned out of that? How have we learned how not to grieve? How have we learned to suppress our feelings, our emotions? How have we become so incompetent at dealing with emotions? So when we go into this area, what we're really talking about is culture. How the culture, over years, over centuries, has conditioned us human beings into being less than we can be, into being less than we potentially are. Because we've been, most of us, cogs in the machine. We've been wage slaves, most of us, peasants or wage slaves in the past, not too distant past. So it hasn't been convenient for those of us who wanted us to be wage slaves to have too many emotions or to have too many personal needs. So over the years, this has been suppressed out of us. Then we come into the last century, the 20th century. Not that long after I was born, we start to move into a whole new consumer culture where we have all been conditioned to consume. We've all been conditioned to expect big things. We expect to be able to get on a plane and fly all over the world. We're so privileged. You and I, if you're, you're watching this, we are so privileged. We have been so spoiled over the last 50 or 60 years. We've been led to have these grandiose expectations. And often when we look out at, what's happening in the world, we blame the big corporations for destroying everything. But it's also part of us. We have come to believe that we deserve to have everything. We deserve to be able to get on a plane and pollute the environment and drive everywhere and have what we want and when we want it. And that's why I think the lockdown is an amazing opportunity. One of many amazing opportunities is that when we suddenly can't go out there, we can't run around anymore. We can't go looking anymore for things to fill us up. We can't keep filling ourselves up with what's out there. We have to sit with ourselves. That's when we start to discover that actually most of the things we need are already here inside. But we've maybe been too frightened to look inside to find them. And it's a long journey often, it just doesn't happen immediately. But this is one of the gifts of this present crisis situation, is that we have this opportunity now to sit with ourselves, like the Buddha did underneath the Bodhi tree. The Buddha's enlightenment happened because he, as a young man, decided to escape from his palace, where he was indulged with every want and every whim was indulged. He left his palace, went out into the streets and discovered death, and discovered infirmity and illness, and discovered poverty. And these were the aspects of humanity that he hadn't been brought face to face with before. And that was the beginning of his road to enlightenment. And what I'm saying now is that we can all become enlightened, not in a sense of being gurus sitting on a mountain, but in a sense of becoming lighter beings, shedding this old conditioning, shedding these old ideas about the world and who we are, emptying ourselves. This is such an amazing opportunity to empty ourselves, to become simple. This new world that so many people want is only going to happen when we don't have to, we're not so addicted. We're not stuffing ourselves with food and things and everything that we think we ought to have all the time, because we've come to a greater place of simplicity within ourselves. We know what's important. So the culture has taught us to suppress our emotions. The culture has taught us to reach outside ourselves to satisfy our needs. Grief has not been welcome in our culture. Indigenous cultures know how to grieve, have always known how to grieve. But we've forgotten how to grieve. We've forgotten how to sit with our feelings, to feel right into the body. We've become cut off from the body. We've become cut off from the emotions. And what happens when all that emotional energy, instead of being released, it gets pressed in. It causes disease, obesity, alcoholism, all these other addictions arise because of that, because we're suppressing ourselves. So this is a time when we can start to give ourselves permission to feel more fully, to sit with ourselves, just to be, not to have to do anything, but just to be. We have this amazing opportunity right now to do that, just to be still, to be satisfied. So sitting with death is not a morbid, dark thing to do at all. It's actually the route to the new culture. The new culture isn't something that we just kind of create from our minds. It's not just a good idea. It's something that's going to arise through spontaneous action, love in action from the heart. Because we've got it, that we're all interconnected, that we're part of interconnected life. We know, not just here, but in here, that this is true. And the only way we get to know that is when we sit with ourselves long enough to discover it within. So I want to encourage you to be simple, to be still, to listen to your heart, to listen to your own wisdom, to allow your feelings, to allow the full range of your feelings, to know that the full range of your feelings is okay. It's okay to feel. It's okay to experience the range of what it means to be human. It's the road to compassion. It's the road to connection. Thank you.